Howdy, everybody. I can't start a video like that.
No.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Chapman True. We are here and we're going to talk to you today about what to look for in a walkthrough, which I am a pro at, right?
I've spent all summer cleaning up your mess.
Yeah, well, we all have strong suits, and my attention to detail when it comes to, walkthroughs and ceilings and floors and stuff like that let's say I can work on it a little bit. When it comes to other things, my attention to detail is impeccable, like making sure that the microwave is reset so I can see the clock.
You know, the important stuff.
The important stuff.
Oh.
So let's just talk about where I may have fell short on this walkthrough that, I said, hey, I can do it. You just stay there and keep on working.
Yeah.
And I got this. I didn't have that.
No, you didn't. But hey, this is a learning lesson, right? So
yeah, I'm not allowed to go on my own.
No, you just need a checklist. You need to make sure that you're checking all of the things because you missed a lot. Yeah.
So if I would have brought the checklist that we use along with me instead of just thinking that I could just walk in and just kind of wing it, probably in a different story right now. But I learned a lot, and what I learned was that I should not do walkthroughs.
No, I think you can do walkthroughs. You just have to use your eyes and a checklist.
Right.
Yeah.
So
because you said the property was fine. The carpet was fine. It really didn't need anything.
I don't recall it.
Maybe a little bit of paint.
That wasn't me.
And then I underwrote it that way, and it's been fun.
Pretty sure I didn't do that. But
the carpet was not okay.
Potato. All right. So, what do you look for in a walkthrough, and what should they look for in a walkthrough when you're deciding on how to build your scope of work and whether there's going to be a deal or not?
So first things first, check your comps, see what's going on, get a general idea of what kind of level of renovation you might need to do. Then when you get to the property, the first thing that I always look at is the potential. I take a look at the outside and I say, okay, what could this look like for the curb appeal, all that good fun stuff. Mm-hmm. But some important things that you really want to be looking for on the outside is the roof, the condition of the roof. Now, most likely you're not an inspector, we're not an inspector, so full disclosure with all of this, you should be getting inspections on your property before you're closing on them. We don't always do this, and this is actually something that we will be doing even if we don't get an inspection before close, because sometimes it's not possible. We will be getting inspections after close, but we do have some key things on the list that can help us understand the level of work that might need to be done and some really high cost items that we'll need to factor in to our renovation costs, and that helps us with our offer, right?
Right. So tell me, the common person just going into a property, what would after you look at the roof, as you're walking in?
You look at the roof, and you can usually tell a roof's age to some degree just by looking at it. So if it looks fairly new, you're probably okay, unless the roofers did a really bad job. You can ask these questions too if you have contact or access to the homeowner, or if it's through a wholesaler, you can ask. If it's through the MLS, you can also check the disclosure documents. But check out the roof, and what you also want to do is look at the soffit and the fascia around, and also any framing that's done on the house. And also, what kind of material is the house made with? So review the outside, because those things can get costly. You want to make sure that if it's siding, that it's something that you can replace. If there's rotting wood on the windows, you need to account for that and make sure that you're saying, hey, we need to replace the frames around the windows and stuff like that. So look for rotting wood around the house. Look at the roof condition, the soffit, the fascia. And those are some really important first things when you walk up to a house to look at.
Yeah, and if it's made of gingerbread, it's going to be a delicious project. Okay, so after you walk up and you see the exterior and you look at it and say, this is going to need to be done. This is going to need to landscaping. Okay, probably, So you walk.
Well, a couple things to note.
Okay, to note.
When you're walking through the outside, walk around the house and look for any cracks going up this side, because what you're really wanting to do here too is look for major foundational damage, because those things can get really expensive. So walk around the exterior of the home, and like if it's brick, for example, you can usually see cracks, things like that going up the side, and then take pictures of it, because if you're not really sure if it's going to be a structural issue or not, you can always take a picture of it and send it to your contractor and double check, like, hey, do you think this is going to be a really big issue? And then you have a better idea of what kind of major problems the house might have.
Right. And with that being said, one of the things that we do on, I think, every one of our projects is we go through, if we're there, we go through and we do a video of the property. And that way we can send that off to our contractors or whoever we may be vetting for the position, for the job. We can send that off to them and they can have a better idea of what the property entails also. We've had a few contractors that said that it's been very helpful to have the video to go through. So capture some video, capture as many photos as you can so that you can send these off to people that know more than you as you go through.
Yeah, and sticking to the exterior is also look at the windows. Do the windows need to be replaced? Is that something that needs to be done? Can you keep them? Do your comps have kind of older windows, or are they just like shot that you need to replace those? Because you're going to want to factor that into your scope of work as well if you need those things done. Decks can be costly to have removed and also rebuilt, so make sure that you're looking at that. For this one, you knew that the deck was rotted out, I think, because the homeowner told you. So we accounted for that in our scope of work. So that was good.
Right. She told me not to step on it because I might fall through. So
yeah.
I was like, we're probably gonna need a new deck.
That was good. I'm really bravo.
Thank you.
But also the landscaping in the yard, because it can get really, really costly to rip out a whole bunch of shrubs and a lot of overgrowth. So don't just look at a property and say, oh, that landscaping will probably just be, $800 and somebody's going to come in and pull it all out and it's going to be fine. If it's really, really overgrown with a bunch of shrubs and things like that, like our Hill Creek project, then you really want to make sure you're budgeting for that, because we ended up having to resod that whole place. Also look for trees.
Right. So as we go through, you look through all these things, but then you want to actually get inside, right?
I know. I'm starting with some.
I know, but I get anxious, and that's what happens. I've been outside for too long now. I need to get inside and look at things.
So you've done your walk around. You've looked at your roof. You've looked to make sure, see if anything's rotting on the outside. You've looked for foundational cracks. You're looking at the landscaping. And then you're also just looking for trees and big roots that might be coming up into the foundation, because that can also be a really major problem. So those are some, I would say, glaring things are going to be those cracks up the side, the roof, and tree where the root system's probably coming in and disrupting the foundation. Those would be a couple key items that I would really note as some potential high ticket items that might be very, very costly in the future. So then you get inside. And what we really look for is how much cosmetic work needs to be done. Because ideally, if we can just go in and do a small amount of cosmetic work, then it's an easier, quicker renovation, right? So sometimes you just need to put in a new vanity and a toilet in a bathroom, and you can save the shower. Maybe that's in decent condition, or the kitchen cabinets, you can paint them. So we go through each room of the house and say, okay, what does this need? Does it need a fresh coat of paint? Does it need new carpet? Yeah, but make sure that the carpet's actually something that is actually in really good condition that you could just clean up. So cosmetic things, so you're looking for, do you need paint? Do you need flooring? Can you keep the flooring? Can you paint the kitchen cabinets? What can you save according to your comps? Because you already have a general idea of what you can do. So you want to be making sure that you just check out all these things. Bathrooms, shower, for example. Here's another thing. In the picture of this particular home that we're talking about, I saw a picture of the bathroom. They had a shower curtain over the shower, and we never verified by pulling that shower curtain open what may be going on in the shower. So it was a guest bath, and I assumed that we would just be able to clean it up and keep that actual shower there. However, when we actually got into the property, you had to peek behind the curtain and there was a hole in the wall. That just added to our cost, but these things happen, right? So just look for these things. Make sure if you're doing a walkthrough, don't be scared to get in and pull back that shower curtain to look at these things, because unless you're just gonna assume that you're gonna replace it, you definitely wanna check that.
Now, in my defense, when I did the walkthrough, it was a distressed buyer. They were there, she had a really big dog. It was darkish, but anyways. So after you look at the cosmetic things, what should I looked down, I did see that there was a spot on the floor that needed to be, maybe covered up or whatever.
Yeah, replace the flooring.
Right, so what are the things that you look for that are a little bigger than cosmetic work?
Yeah, so cosmetic work, what can you do? Those kind of things, make a list of it. Then you want to be looking at mechanicals. So is the HVAC working?
Mm-hmm.
How is the electric?
Mm-hmm.
How is the plumbing? And some of these things you're not really going to be able to completely figure out while you're there, and this is why it's always good to get an inspector or just budget in. Now you can kind of tell from the age of the home what you may or may not need to do, but if you go to the electric panel and you look at it, you can get a general idea if it needs to be updated or not. And also, again, by the age. You can also ask the homeowner, has this been updated? Has plumbing been updated? Those kind of things. So those are also costly items. If you need to replace an entire plumbing system or electric system, those things can get very, very expensive, because then that involves removing drywall most likely and all that good fun stuff. HVAC system, we did have to replace the HVAC on this particular property, so we did know that going into it. It was hot in there, right? So that's a key sign.
Well,
when you walk into a house in the middle of summer, it's hot. Probably HVAC isn't working.
Yeah, maybe. Well, and one of the things that we always do also is to take a picture of the serial number and everything on the HVAC. And that's more probably how we knew that it needed to be replaced, because if you Google by the serial number or whatever, it can tell you how to find out the age of the HVAC system. So we look at that, we take a picture of the electric box, we look at the hot water heater and the plumbing system for what we can see, to see if there's any active leaks, if there's any wet spots anywhere. And that can give you a good clue of whether you're going to have to replace everything or everything is in good standing and things like that. But sometimes, like, the homeowner's not there, sometimes the place is vacant, somebody may be distressed and you don't really want to dig too deep. Certain things that you have to kind of take on your own, but a part of building the scope of work is building in cushion in order for things like this.
Yep. When in doubt, write it out. Put it on as something that needs to be done. If it's an older home and you think that this may need to be replaced, you have a good feeling, just go ahead and underwrite that into your offer.
We're going to make t-shirts.
When in doubt, write it out. Another major thing that you want to look for, and this is the biggest thing because this can really just be insanely costly, right? This can cost a whole bunch of money, is foundation work. How do you tell if a foundation might have some issues? Well, there are a couple things. One, if you open and close doors and they're not quite shutting right, or a door is just kind of like slowly closing on its own. If you walk through the house and there's bumps in the floor, if the floor is uneven, those are some really key signs that something's going on with the foundation. This doesn't always mean that it's going to be $1 million to fix. Sometimes these foundation issues may just be something pretty small, but sometimes it can be it can turn into a bigger project because of it. So you want to also look for cracks down the side of the walls inside the house. So keep your eye out and be looking for those things. And also you can even negotiate that in to say, okay, I'm going to need to bring out an inspector for this, so you can, or get a quote on that. And especially now it's becoming a little bit more of a buyer's market. So you can use that to have somebody come out and give you a quote for the foundation, and you say, hey, this foundation's going to cost me 50 grand. I need a discount even further on this property because this is a pretty major issue. But that is some really key things, and that's what I was also talking about with the tree, making sure that those roots aren't in there. So flooring, making sure the doors are shutting right, and then also just cracks down the walls inside the house and outside the house. They can cause you some major headaches if you don't make sure you get those underwritten in your deals.
And what are some other things that could end up being major? And I'm talking about major bugs in your process. That was too obvious.
Yeah. I still don't know how you didn't realize just how many fleas were in that house. So one thing that you want to be looking for is termite damage, signs of termite damage, right? So if you're not sure exactly what signs of termite damage look like, I would Google it and get familiar with it, because it's a really good thing to know. A lot of times when an area is really wet, like the ground and stuff like that, it will attract termites. So just make sure that you know some of the signs, and you can actually most of the times see on a lot of times the exterior of the property, sometimes the interior of the property, the tracks of the termites. And termite damage may not be a big deal, or it could be, but a lot of times you don't know until you open up the walls. So just make sure that you're looking for any kind of signs of those termite damage. Rats can be a big problem. And one of the major issues we had with this last one was it was a very bad flea infestation. And so not that this, to get it taken care of, was necessarily a huge expense. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it cost us maybe $800, which we hadn't really planned for, to have several exterminators come out. And the issue with it actually was the timeline, is that it drug out the timeline of, it just took so long to get rid of them because of the life cycle. And so we weren't actually able to just do a small cleanup on this property and turn it back and try to get other investors interested in it. We had to hold on. It was just, the infestation was so, you couldn't even walk in the house. It was so bad.
So things like this can throw a curveball in your plans. So make sure you're looking out for these kind of things. And you're not going to see everything, but like she said, when in doubt, write it out. Add it in there. I learned that today, so that's pretty fun. And it's going to be a t-shirt one of these days.
So make sure you're looking for these key things. You can easily see a lot of times in pictures, if you're getting this from a wholesaler or you're seeing it on the MLS, you can kind of get an idea with pictures, like cosmetically what might need to be done, but actually going into the property and seeing what's going on can really help you understand a little bit more about the condition of the property and what might need to be done. So one last thing that's really important that we didn't touch on, that's kind of outside of like all these little things that might need to be done, is the layout of a property. Because this is really, really important. At the end of the day, this could make or break your deal. So if you walk into a house and it's wall, the layout's really weird, and it's not something that people would enjoy to have as a house, you have to figure out how to make that layout work, which can be incredibly expensive if you need to get into moving walls or having an engineer come in. So don't just walk in and say, okay, these are just the couple things we need to do: paint, carpet, this and this. You need to actually look at the layout and make sure that it's functional for somebody living there. Because if it's not, you're gonna really wanna make it functional so that home sells, and you wanna make sure you're factoring that into your project as well.
Right, it doesn't necessarily kill a deal, but there's a price that is associated with everything. So if it's gonna make your margins too thin or make you go over budget, then it may kill the deal, but it has a number to it. So all these things add up. So what you want to do is go in there and just check all these things out, like I would have done if I had this list that you can probably actually find in the description, I would imagine,
yeah,
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We're
gonna send you a list.
Just don't forget your list.
Don't forget your list. And I mean, it's a digital world, so I should have just had it on my phone, but you know, things happen. We learn our strengths and our weaknesses. So next time I'm sent in to do an inspection, I'm gonna look at this video like you should do, and then I'm gonna get my list from the description, and then I'm gonna go in there with all kinds of authority and say, I got this walkthrough in my bag. Okay, well, thank you guys for hanging out. It's been fun. We'll try to do this again. I guess probably like every week. That's the plan.
Yeah, we're trying it.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
We're trying to do it.
We'll do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll work out.
It means I have to hang out with you once a week though.
All right, thank you guys very much. We'll see you guys next time. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, do all those happy things. See you. Bye.